Polygon, Kotaku. Truly bastions of integrity in a world of online video game journalist publications. But hey, at least we're not IGN, another one bites the proverbial dust. You know what I've been doing lately? I've been getting back into PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. They say you can't get to the top without getting a little dirty on the way. PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, or PUBG, or, Plunkbat, I guess, is the other variation of it. Yeah? PUBG Plunkbat has not been able to get to the top without its fair share of controversy. And quite frankly, no game that reaches this level of popularity this quickly wouldn't as well. But I can't help that a lot of the times, Mr. Green, PlayerUnknown himself, brings many of these criticisms upon his game himself. There was a time I was very optimistic about Mr. Green and his ability to handle the surge in popularity of this game, and to not have him come off as this, I don't know, this, what's a good way to say it, this greedy corporate asshole? Greedy corporate asshole, yeah. I recall way back in July of 2017. Weren't those simpler times? Mr. Green replied very positively to the inevitable question about modding in PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, and his response was rather optimistic and positive. I want to find the next PlayerUnknown, he said, understanding that that very well might be done through someone who mods his game. Obviously, this was very positive news to many people who could only imagine in their heads the potential of what mods could do to this already solid experience. And even I can't wait to see what people come up with when modding is finally opened up and people really get into the meat and bones of it. But as time dragged on, the immense optimism that people had, myself included too, Green and his attitude, began to wane. And not necessarily because of the personal actions by Brandon Green or the things that he said, but by the things done by PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds themselves as a game, as a company. And no doubt, a lot of you will remember some of these issues that many of the player base, and even those who haven't played the game, have contention with. In fact, it's fairly hard not to. In no particular order, paid crates in an early access game that was not a free-to-play. A lot of people had a great problem with that. It seemed really scummy, a bit greedy. The game's not even done, and I've already paid to get in, and you want to put microtransactions into the game? At least they were aesthetic, right? We had the issues concerning streamers and stream snipings and the bans that resulted from those. A lot of people had issues with the fact that somebody could be banned over what is basically a streamer's accusations with no proof at all. Just hearsay in the pointing of fingers could get you a ban because you killed the wrong person who might have been streaming. Maybe that's what happens when you voluntarily and publicly broadcast your location to thousands of people. I don't know. And remember guys, team killing is against the rules in PUBG, even if you kill a team killer. If someone on your team is killing other members of your team and they're out for blood and you kill them in self-defense to protect yourself, well, sorry bucko, but team killing's against the rules, so enjoy your ban. You're supposed to take it like a bitch. And what worries many people the most, perhaps myself included, is the way that PUBG, Bluehole, and the people who make the game treat the concept of the Battle Royale game mode. Language that they've used in the past, especially Brandon Green himself, gives a lot of people, myself included, the impression that they really don't like the idea that other people are using the Battle Royale game mode, which they can't by any means copyright or hold as their own. And a lot of us certainly hope that this isn't an issue that comes up in the future. Especially now that a lot of other games are trying to popularize on people's desire for this kind of game. Paladins, Fortnite, even Counter-Strike Go, I've heard. But you've heard, perhaps, of the China question, because you've heard of the Jewish question. But what about the Chinese question? Specifically the Chinese question about PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. PUBG hit with stream of negative reviews following Chinese in-game ads. Almost 10,000 negative reviews hit the PUBG Steam page in the last day, and that was back in early October. Maybe that's part of the explanation as to why this game is only 56% positive from reviewers on Steam overall. Personally, I think the game is a solid 7.5, 8 out of 10. It's a fine game in and of itself, but there's a lot of people who are understandably very upset about the state of the game, especially at its launch when it came out with version 1.0. Within the last 30 days, 46% of the reviews have been positive, so less than half. The Steam page says that a high volume of reviews detected between December 21st and December 25th. I wonder what happened on December 21st that got such a huge amount of negative reviews thrown this game's way. It was the release, 1.0. It's pretty clear that a lot of people were looking forwards to maybe a little bit better of a full release. Optimization concerns, hit registration concerns, and netcode, game stability crashing. A lot of people think that the game just should have launched in a better state. And maybe they're right. But let's have a chat about
China.
Because there's a lot of people on China who love PUBG. In fact, most people on Steam now are from China, thanks to PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. And sometimes when it comes to East versus West, we can all come to common ground on the idea that if you pay for a game and it's still in early access and you're seeing a bunch of in-game ads, yeah, you're gonna be pissed. Especially if those in-game ads are for a third-party gaming VPN in China. Because Chinese players have for a long time complained that the local servers that they have really bad lag. They're just not good quality. Many of them end up coming to North American and European servers. And a lot of you can probably guess what happens when somebody on the other side of a planet joins your server. Nice ping, asshole. I got him! Woohoo! Nice. Yeah, that's not gonna make anyone irate. And I'm sure there's gonna be even more drama and controversy, justified or not, in the upcoming years and months of PUBG's development as it grows and expands. And I'm sure the player base will be split on many issues, both in-game and out. It'll be the Star Wars Episode 8 of Battle Royale games. But the geographical issues that have plagued North American and European players alike has not flown under the radar with the appropriate amount of backlash. And I say geographical because that's ultimately the heart of the entire issue, despite what Brandon Green might say. PUBG creator on the rise of China and the future of Battlegrounds warns players that xenophobia has no place in his community. First off, it's not your community, it's the game's community. Green, if you were to drop dead tomorrow, literally nothing would change. But the wording implies ownership, that he has and should have a direct control and say over everything that happens regarding the game. And to some degree that might be the case, but this isn't quite the same. For a long time, the Chinese question plagued the PUBG community, and, in a way, it still does to this day. Before the Chinese had regional servers, where do you think they played? They played on Western-based servers, and as you can see, and as any of you who have ever played a video game before can attest, that makes for some pretty big issues. Balance issues, gameplay issues, communication issues, and that's ultimately the problem of having so many people from China playing with so many people from North America and from Europe. In real-time strategy games like Total War or StarCraft, the ping issue isn't nearly as important as it is in first-person shooters, where reflexes and having the best pinpoint aim will ultimately play a huge role in determining who wins. Even in MOBA games, it's not as ping-focused and it's not as knee-jerk reaction and response time focused as it is in first-person shooters, where specific and precise movements of the mouse are the most important. And as I've shown you in the clip from earlier, just one of the examples that I have, it can potentially decide whether or not you live or die. It can be the difference between winning and losing. You can be killed by someone who you've already brought down. And even in a non-gameplay reason, It's the communication aspect. In fact, I was playing this game right before I started making this video, and there was someone in our group who spoke Spanish, not a lick of English except for bro. It made it very difficult to communicate. What attachments do you need? What ammunition do you need? Is there anything at all that you're lacking? Can I get you health? What direction are enemies coming from? How many of them are there? Is there a vehicle around? Do you want to move to a location? Do you want to hold out on this location? Not being able to speak the language of the region that you're playing in is obviously a liability. It has nothing to do with where you're from or what the color of your skin is. It has everything to do with your ability to play cohesively with a team. PUBG is a game where communication can be key. It can be of the utmost paramount importance. It has nothing to do with racism, it has nothing to do with sexism, it has nothing to do with xenophobia, it has nothing to do with skin color, it has nothing to do with anything. It's simply a matter of this is a game that requires team cohesion in order to play more effectively. And if you can't do that, a lot of people are not going to take kindly to it, and if anything, they'll be frustrated. But why make a video about this issue specifically? A lot of what I said will be nothing but common sense to most of the people who probably hear it. And this is the reason why. As of November 2017, Steam, the world's largest online marketplace for PC games, is no longer a primarily English-speaking platform. More than half of its users read and write Chinese. The sudden transition is in no small part due to a single game, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. I didn't understand the scale of China when I first started this, said Brendan Green, the game's creator. You hear things like Tencent's WeChat has 1 billion users. 1 billion people use this single app in China. What the fuck? The literal scale of the player base in China is crazy. It kind of blew me away. Most troubling, however, has been the reaction of some of the game's fans in the West. Uh-oh, here we go. All those white males. It's Polygon, you can read between the lines. If this was a Chinese game and American players were flooding into Chinese servers and hassling the Chinese player base, there wouldn't be an article. Amidst the rapid growth in the Chinese player base, racial slurs have begun flying on social media. Some have even called for Chinese players to be booted onto their own dedicated servers. Green strongly condemns the behavior. Which is strange, because one would assume that Brendan Green knows how multiplayer shooters work and he has a concept of the idea of ping. Because you know what? That sounds like a pretty good idea to me. If you're in China and you join a North American server, yeah, you should be booted off the North American server if your ping is creating a balance and fairness issue in the game for other players. Guess what? If you're a North American player playing on a North American server, then maybe there should be a limit to how much ping you can have before the game automatically boots you, because your connection is creating a gameplay and balancing issue for the rest of the players on the server, and that shouldn't be acceptable. This sentiment of mine applies to you no matter where you're from or what your skin color is or what language you speak. If you are unable to play the game in a fair manner with other players, you should not be allowed to play the game with other players. Either that, or there should be servers specifically designed for players who do not have high ping. But, quite frankly, the creator of PUBG, he strongly condemns the opinion that I just had right there. He is strongly against the idea that people should not play with people on the other side of the planet because their internet connection is not suitable for an online shooter. Because I have the crazy preference to not want to get shot by people who are dead on the ground, because their ping in all practicality makes them time travelers, well, I'm just a bad person. My opinion is strongly condemned. I'm probably really just a horrible racist in disguise. Will racial slurs fly around? Of course they will, and it's not good to do, and you shouldn't do it because it's ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense. But Green wasn't done there. It's quite disgraceful to see, he said. The Chinese player base is very passionate for Battlegrounds and they love our game. They're the reason we have such a high number of concurrent users. Yes, there's some cheaters that come out of there, but the majority of our Chinese players just love our game and love playing it. Well, you know what, Mr. Green? Whoop-de-damn-do for them. I'm very glad that they enjoy Battlegrounds so much. I enjoy it most of the time. You know what gets in the way of my enjoyment? When I'm shot by people who are dead on the ground? You know what gets in the way of my enjoyment? Being unable to understand what my teammates are saying to me, being unable to communicate with my squad, You know what really destroys my enjoyment of the game, Mr. Green? It's getting shot around a wall, or past a corner. Because somebody that I'm shooting at, or being shot by, is on the other side of the planet Earth, using shitty and unreliable internet connection to play with people that he shouldn't be playing with. Because his connection just isn't good enough to partake in the experience without ruining the balance and fairness for other players. But I suppose that just makes me a racist. I suppose that just makes me a dirty, filthy xenophobe. I just don't like Asians, I guess. And when it comes to cheaters, well, you say here in this article from Steamed on Kotaku by Nathan Great... Sorry, I had something caught in my throat. It was slimy. You said yourself that the majority of Battlegrounds cheats are from China. The majority. Many PUBG players blame the game's cheating problem on China. They're not wrong, says the popular Battle Royale game creator Brendan Green, whatever the fuck your name is. I'd care if I had more respect for you. So, he says that blaming the game's cheating problem on China isn't wrong, even though in the Polygon article that we were looking at before, he explicitly said that yes, there's some cheaters that come out of there. There's some cheaters that come out of there. Not the vast majority, because we know from BattleEye, going back to the current article here, BattleEye have already tweeted out that around 99% of cheats in the game right now are coming out of China. The 99% figure, in fact, comes from BattleEye, of the amount of cheats coming from China. So again, let me make this clear, alright? Let me put this here in the most unambiguous and direct way possible. PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds is a game where 99% of the cheaters are Chinese. Again, 99% of the people who cheat are Chinese. According to Steam Spy, if you take a look, the numbers for PUBG are pretty telling when it comes to geography and the distribution. Of the game's players, 42% of owners are in China alone. The US accounts for only 13% of players. So, Chinese players, whether or not you trust the 99% figure from BattleEye, still are by a massive margin the biggest cheaters in the game. And when that spills over to other parts of the world, yeah, you've got a problem. Well, I say you, as in the player, has a problem. Brandon Green, he doesn't have much of a problem. Well, he's got all that sweet, sweet Chinese cash. He knows where the gravy train's coming from. Green said there's a massive cheat market not only in China, but around the world. But it's seen as kind of a little bit more acceptable to cheat in games in China. Also, geographically, they just have a lot more people than anywhere else in the world. Well, Brandon, let me break this down to you. People don't give a flying fuck. I don't give a flying fuck whether or not they think it's more acceptable or not. Because over here, in the West, I don't know, maybe it's a Chinese cultural thing, but I'm not particularly concerned with that. Cheating is cheating, and I'm not going to say that, oh, well, I'm going to treat them to a different standard because they're in China, or I'm going to say that it's more acceptable for them to do it because that's how they feel. No. Brendan, whoever you are, cheating is not acceptable. Cheating is something that is bad. It doesn't matter where the cheater is coming from, they're fucking around with other people. And if most of the cheats, the vast majority of the cheats, in fact, almost exclusively all of the cheaters are in China, well, that's making it even worse for the players in China who don't cheat. Instead of saying, oh, fucking shit, we have to do something about all the cheaters coming out of China, he says, well, they have a different attitude about cheating than we do here. And, I mean, good golly gosh, guys, there are so many people who are playing this game in China right now. I mean, what do you want me to do? Like, try to make the game more stable, more difficult to be hacked? But you know what might be a little bit difficult? Trying to get rid of hackers and trying to get rid of cheaters. And you know what might be really easy? Instead, telling people that they're racist and xenophobic for having a problem with it. I mean, can you imagine the nerve of all of those players in North America and the rest of the Western Hemisphere who have a problem with the insane cheating problem that's coming out of China and not even relating to the ping issues and the communication issues and the stability on server performance? I mean, can you imagine how racist you would have to have a problem with people cheating in your game who don't have the same skin color as you? And all the Asian players in North America who are sick of the Chinese players? Well, I guess I'll have to chalk that one up to self-loathing. Who knew that a first-person shooter on Steam could turn them into race traders? I think one thing that's interesting is that when Brendan Green talked with Polygon on the day of 1.0's release, December 21st, he said, yes, there's some cheaters that come out of there. But when he spoke to Kotaku, he directly cited BattleEye's numbers that 99% of cheaters in PUBG were Chinese. Again, 99% of PUBG cheaters are Chinese, and they make up less than half of the player base for the game. That is a huge overrepresentation coming out of China. And a lot of you are already thinking that the obvious solution that would be best for everybody in the game would be to simply region lock players. You can't play with people who are on the other side of the planet. And yes, maybe to you and me, this is an extremely nonsensical and obvious common sense approach to tackle the issue that would go a long way to alleviate a lot of people's concerns. But Daddy Green doesn't see things that way. This kind of xenophobic attitude that a lot of Western players seem to have online is just disgraceful, he says. It's 2017. We live on one big planet together. What the fuck? I'm quite ashamed of those players that shout these things out. We want to create a game space for everyone to enjoy across the globe, and locking one region out, I don't know what the fuck they're thinking. Well, Green, let me tell you what the fuck they're thinking, because it is apparently lost on you. This is very simple. In fact, I think in order to explain it, I will draw up this neat, handy diagram. Alright, this is a globe. It represents the Earth. Can't believe I have to explain this to you like you're a fucking first grader. This is the United States of America. Now, if you notice, no matter how hard you look on this globe, you will not see China on this side. Where is China? I'll let you know why you can't see China on this picture here. Because China is on the other side of the planet. That is a long, long way, Brendan. And the further away you get from another person, the more time it takes for information to travel between you guys. The longer it takes for this information to travel, the longer the delay is between one player's interaction with the other. And in a game, like PUBG, where characters are shooting at each other and taking cover and aiming and sending little bits of metal flying through the air, in order to hit the opponents that they're facing, the last thing you want is a delay in the communication between what those characters see and do in relation to one another. As a general rule, the further you are from somebody else, the worse the experience will be. Launches game in a region of the world that is both massive in size and distant from the servers. Doesn't give them dedicated servers, but helps them reroute their already laggy connections through additional lag-creating VPNs. Players can no longer find teammates they can communicate or coordinate with, and constantly die due to lag-related issues. Obviously, they're just a bunch of xenophobes, right? But hey, let's remember those Steam scores, guys. 46% positive in the last 30 days. And it actually went down while I was editing this, too. Now, I don't know about you, but if I'm making a game, I want that number to be 100% of feedback is positive, and 100 people who play this game love it and recommend it. So if I see that my number is as low as 46, dollars or not, obviously there's some sort of an issue. And if for no reason other than the ethics of wanting to make the best game that I possibly can, maybe I should do something about that. And what's so frustrating to me, as someone who just has common sense in their head, is that you can go to these review scores and you can see these obvious consistencies about what people are complaining about. Brendan, I mean, I don't know, man. It takes 5 seconds to go to the Steam reviews and find out what people's issues are. BattleEye hack prevention is an absolute joke. The Chinese have 3 servers to choose from, but they decide to go to Oceania and North American servers. Mind doing something about that? And is it Oceania? Oceania? I don't know. I've never actually heard it said. I've only seen it typed. I don't know. Oceania, I'm guessing? Region lock, please. Chinese players have invaded the North American servers. Team killing non-Chinese, unable to communicate, obnoxious and super loud in chat. It's horrible. And the game company calls everyone racist for bringing it up. Do not buy. And that's something that I've noticed in this game with all of the Chinese players that I've been matched and paired with. A lot of the times, I don't know, it's like they have the mics open and they're all inside of busy rooms. I don't know, that's just something that I've noticed is very consistent. Chinese people have open mics in loud rooms. Very often. All the time. I don't have any numbers on that. It's just something that I've noticed while I've been playing. And you know, I could keep going on and on with these reviews, telling the developers just what the problems are. There's a hacking issue, and almost exclusively hacking is done by Chinese. There's region locking issues, which pairs with a bad server stability, and the desync, and the lackluster netcode. This is not rocket science. It doesn't take Sherlock Holmes to figure out what the problems are. But I guess to Brendan Green, the problem isn't the game. The problem is all those xenophobic Westerners who think that the Chinese are just the scum of the earth because they're Chinese, not because they're ruining the experience and making the game unfun. And you see this happen time and time again. Time and time and time again. They don't address the argument, they don't address the problem. It's much easier to just slap a label on you as a replacement. It is so fucking easy what the solution is. Region lock. Don't let people from China play with people from the other side of the planet. And vice versa. That rule works both ways. I'm not being unfair. I'm not being inconsistent. People from North America shouldn't be allowed to hop on Chinese servers and give them the same problems. You guys need to fix the hacking issue in this game. If 99% of hackers are coming from China, how do you think the Chinese players who don't cheat feel? They probably are not having the best of time. Now, Brendan, I know I'm just some upstart, edgy young guy, and I know that my position on this issue is nothing radical, but there are some things that I do understand, and one of those things is that if you go around calling people xenophobes and racists for legitimate issues that they have, it makes people not respect you. And what little respect that I began to have in you when this game was the up-and-coming new indie hit is practically all gone. When someone says the word Brendan Green to me, I don't associate that with anything positive. Brendan Green's the guy who called me a racist. Brendan Green is the guy who said that I am a bad person because of the legitimate issues that I have with PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. I don't associate your name with the creation of one of the hottest selling games in history that created such a huge sensation in the gaming world. I don't see you as someone who had a vision for a title and created that. I don't see you as a breakout success story who stuck to his guns in making a game and ultimately had that pay off. That's not how I see you. All of those things come second. Second to your character. Because when you say things like this, when your dismissal of people's issues with the game and you assign that to some ridiculous racist intent, I don't think of you as anything other than a fool. Someone who's willing to throw the reputation of his player base that has supported him under the proverbial bus because you know where all that real money's coming from. I see you as someone who would slander his entire community because that would be easier than you fixing all your actual problems. And as much as you would like to think that you are PUBG, we both know that's not the case. Like I said, if you were to die in a car crash tomorrow, the game would still live on, it would still be successful, it would still have millions of players, with or without you. And when a lot of people look at you, they see you as the creator of this game. But when I look at you, that comes second to the character attacks that you make on your player base. Those are the kinds of things that are important. Those are the kinds of things that stick out to me. And you know, a lot of people probably don't care about you. A lot of people do, maybe. But when I see you, then it's the things that you do like this that are the ones that you will carry around as baggage. I can separate the art from the artist. It is no problem for me. But in one smooth move, Brendan, you have eclipsed your success with this breakout hit. An incredible achievement with these ridiculous accusations against your players. When the game released on December 21st of 2017, when it hit 1.0, the game had 30 million players. That is an astronomically high number of people to play one game. That is 10 times the population of my entire state, all playing the same game. I can't even begin to fathom how much money you have made off of this, and I'm glad that you're successful. I legitimately am. I'm glad that you've been able to make this game a success. And that's not even getting into all the money that you've made from the keys and microtransactions in this game. I could only begin to imagine. So I don't want to hear any bullshit about how you just can't do it, about it can't be done, about you don't have the resources, you don't have the team, you don't have the time, you don't have the ability. All of these issues, every single one, is not beyond your ability to fix. And if you would have just come out and left it at the Chinese government's making it difficult, or we're trying to do this with the team that we have, or we're trying to do this the right way, so there might be delays in rolling out the fix. If you would have come out and said, we didn't expect this game to be so popular, we're overwhelmed by the amount of people enjoying the game, that would have been one thing. That would have been a much more preferable option than, look at all of the people who supported me. They must all be a bunch of xenophobes. And quite frankly, it doesn't matter how they feel about it, because I've already got their money. And honestly, it doesn't even matter if they stop supporting the game. I've got China. I can say whatever I want about players in the West. I don't need them. So maybe, Brendan, you'll keep that in mind the next time you decide to label people like that. Maybe one day you'll learn to respect your player base and work harder on trying to address the legitimate grievances that they have, and instead maybe not slap derogatory labels on them all. The people who got you the success that you have now. Because, quite frankly, based on your behavior of late, I'm pretty convinced that people play this game despite you, Brendan, not because of you.